Hey guys, welcome to the tutorial for the military peak cap. This is basically the cap that we're going to be making. I'll be making this exact cap for you. You can have a look at it. It's a simple cap to make, super comfortable, and yeah, I must say it's a good looking cap. When you purchase the pattern, you will get a couple, of course, the pack PDF, which you'll print out. There's just basically an information page. You can read this on the PDF before you print it out. Try not to print this out. It's just a waste of paper more than anything else. It's just an introduction. Then on the next page, which I don't have here, is basically a material list of the things that you will need. So you will have that in your PDF. And also you will have this here, which is the print scale measurement. This is an extremely important piece because when you print out your pattern, print this page first and then compare it to your measurements. I have given some scales as to the sizes that you need to print. Basically at 100%, so this is a 58 centimeter cap, this fits my head, you should be able to measure exactly 5 centimeters, and it should measure both ways 5 centimeters, and that way you know that you have a 58 centimeter cap. Of course, if you're going to be printing a 59 centimeter, 60 centimeter, this is going to be a bigger size. So you would need to do the calculations. When you print out your pattern, print out the scale measurement first, and then check to make sure that how you have calculated the size is exactly what this cube will be, both sides, yeah? So this way and lengthway, up and down. And if that measures, then you know you have your print scale correct. And then you can go ahead and print the actual pattern. Okay, so just to keep that in mind there. All right, the next thing that you'll have here is an overview of how the pieces will seamlessly fit together. And you will see here, you have the middle band, you have the A, B, C, and D, and these will combine on the connect lines over here. And then here you have the top band A, B, C, and D, again connecting on the cut lines here. And you will see there's a small little writing here that tells you exactly which it is, and you'll see that bigger on the actual pattern itself. Rim band A, B, C, and D, all of them are 4 pieces basically, and I've cut these into 4 pieces to enable us to be able to print at a much larger size if anybody needs it. I'll get one of those pieces here. This is the rim band. There you will see A, B, C, and D. You can see that there's quite a lot of space here for you to be able to expand this and make it bigger. It could quite easily be a 63, 64 before you start to run into any problems with the actual size of the paper. If you do come into any problems with this, then just let me know. I can then restructure a print file for yourself, and I'll have that sent off to you ASAP. So just contact me and I can get that done for you ASAP. Yeah. So there's that. So once we have this overview, we can see all the pieces that are required for this cap and how these pieces will fit together there. And then you can just go through and just make sure that you have, here's the peak. Again, just a quick one. Here we have a center point. This is the center of the cap, basically the center of the forehead. And you will see that this is the same on here is the center point. Again, this is the center point. Here you will see the P1, P2. This is the back of the head. So basically here's where it will connect with the bands at the back. And this is the front, and in the end it will go somewhere along the lines of this, of course further down, because there'll be bands involved, and I'll show you where that is again. here's the middle band. This part here will connect P1 and P3. So P1 you see here, and there's P1 there. So this piece will connect here and then run all the way around, and on the opposite side at the end you'll see P2, and this will be the last hole there. There's a 0.25 millimeter difference here, which basically covers this gap that you will see here between the two, and there's another point there. These points that I'm showing you, the center points, do not need to be punched. You just need to mark the leather with those so you can get a guide of where you're at. All right, so I will keep the peak out and we'll discuss that in a second. Okay, so here we have the top band. This is, first we'll do the middle band. This will connect to the crown. Then will come the top band, and you can see here P3 is coinciding with P3 here. And you will sew all the way around to P4 again here. So this will be the other end. There are two other marks here, P5 and P6, and you will see them here. Basically P5 and P6, and these will coincide with these here. And that center point there is actually the center point between these two pieces here. So where these combine, exactly in the middle, is where that center point is. And you can mark that as well. We'll do that in the actual pattern when I make it. So there's that. All right. With the headband or the rim band to say, I haven't marked any P1s and P2s. So here's basically P1, or I mean P3 and P4 would be the same here. It's basically going to be starting at the same point and being sewn around. When you combine the middle parts, B and C together, you will then get a middle point here along this cut line, and you can just mark that. And that will be, again, where it connects with the peak itself here. So that center point will be between these two here, and will be connected there. So you can mark that as well. So it gives you an idea on where these should easily fit together, and then you can pin them and make sure that they are there, and it makes your sewing a little bit easier. Yeah. So there's that, and that's the last piece. So actually there's not that much that you guys need to do, we'll move on to the video now and get sewing or get cutting first. So the first thing we're going to do is select the leather that you're going to be using. Remember something, guys, when you're doing your equations on how big you need to print out, I have made this pattern so that we can use 1.5 to 2 millimeters thickness here. You can see that here when I put this when I put the thing there, we have roughly around about 4 millimeters there. So consider we have 8 millimeters plus the actual peak itself, which is again another 3 to 4 millimeters. So all in all, if you're using a thinner leather or a thicker leather, you need to calculate that addition or subtraction in size of the leather so that this cap fits you properly. Otherwise, you may get a cap that's a little bit too small or a little bit too big. A little bit too big, there's not much we can do about. A little bit too small, you can wet the lining or the rim band, this part here, and then basically stretch the leather to fit your head. That's basically it. And within a couple of wears, that leather will adjust itself slightly to fit you, you basically won't even realize it. If it's way too small, then of course it's can only move so much. So you need to make sure that the calculations are correct. If there's any issues with your calculations, or if you're not 100% sure, just contact me, give me a comment down below, then I will give you I'll assist you to make sure that those calculations are correct. Yeah. So yep, let's get to it, let's have some fun. Now I've chosen the leather that I'll be using, and I'll be making a black cap in this video. what I need to do is we've already cut out the pattern itself, so we need to then of course stamp out the holes and prepare to be able to sew. So on this, the peak I will dye this black in the end, but what I'm doing is I've just used a plain basically 4mm leather, veg tan leather. This enables me to be able to mold the shape of the actual peak, so that when it's attached to the cap itself, that it'll hold that shape. And this works actually quite well. So let's get ready. All right. Okay, quite simple. When you guys are about to stamp your to punch the holes, a tip is to use a little bit of beeswax over the actual where your holes are going to be, and this will enable us to easily get the punch in and out without it gripping onto the leather. And this works quite well. So just a thin layer there will help you. Right, and another thing that I've done here, this is just a marker, the lid of a marker. So instead of, because it's a single hole punch, instead of having all of the pieces coming out consistently all over your work, or you having to clean it up all the time, this cap here, which is just a small hole punched in, this will allow you to catch all the pieces, and it's quite a nifty, cheapo trick there. Yeah, so have a look at it. Another thing that we also want to do is by using your awl, you can mark where those center points are. And just remember, don't have to punch a hole through there, just to mark onto the leather itself. That will enable you to center with the rest of the pattern as we start to build it. So let's get punching. See, I have all the pieces there, which makes it a lot easier to keep everything clean. Okay, so now we want to cut out the shape, of course, and this will be done with all of the pieces. Now, the idea, especially with the thicker piece, like with the peak itself, I want to make sure that I keep a perpendicular or 90-degree blade. If I cut it inwards or outwards, then it's not going to hold quite so well. It won't look so good, and it will take away from the peak itself. So try and keep it 100% 90 degrees as you cut. So here we have the initial shape. The next step we're going to do immediately is just bevel the edges. We'll do this on both sides. All right, so the edges are beveled. And this piece is quite good. You can see my mark there. This shows that this is the center point. If you count it from here to here, it would be 24, and from here to here would be 24. So I know that here is the center of my peak. So just now what I will do is I will wet this, and then I will basically bend these edges around here and shape this peak so that it will fit into the cap quite easily. Once it's done like that and it's sewn in, then it will hold its shape mostly. Yeah, it's quite simple. Firstly, I will dye this black and then I will finish it because it's easier to do so whilst it's still flat. And then afterwards, I will then wet the leather and I will then bend it into its shape. Okay, so for now I will put that to the side. First part done. Get out the next. So this is the crown. Again, as we see, I have the center points there and there, and these I will mark as well. That's the crown done. If you look carefully where you've made your marks, you'll see where the center points are. Okay, so there's that one punched out. Again, just need to cut it out. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to use the ruler. Okay, and then I'm going to cut this out in two parts because it's quite big. So I like to cut towards myself. So I'll cut first the one side and then the other. Okay, so middle band is now completed. Okay, so I've prepared the rim band. This will be on the inside. Now it's up to you which material you would like to use. You could also use a thinner suede or something like that, just to be able to absorb a little bit of sweat. You can also use an elastic sweatband to say. The idea is still going to be the same. I'm using the same leather as I've used for the other pieces. You will also see on the inside line here, there are no punch holes, so it's just on the outside here. And that's really because this side we don't need to secure to anything, so there's no point to sew it. That's all. Okay, so we're on to the last one. What we need to do here is on the top band, this is obviously the part which will connect to the peak and the rim. In here we have where the peak will connect itself here, P5 and P6, and on the peak you will see there P6 and P5. Of course, it's going to be here like this. So what we want to do is we just want to mark inside our sew line again, just 2 points, one on each side of that and one on each side of this here. And just for reference point, there is also the middle point here. This is of course half and half. So just along that line, that cut line that we had before, is where that would be. And this will enable you again to see that this is where these two holes will then match. And of course, P5 here will be on this hole and P6 will be on that hole there. So once you've done that, yet again, prepare to do the last punching. Alright, and then last but not least, just beveling those edges again. Then what you want to just quickly check is just make sure that your marks are visible for where the points are that you'll start. So P5 and P6 are the most important on this piece. So just make sure that you are clear where they are. All right, So now we have everything cut out. I will go ahead and get my piece dyed black for the peak, and then I will be back for the rest. Okay, so here is my peak again. I have colored it and done the finish on it as well. So the next step that I want to do is the edge here. So just to shine it up. The rest of my cap is actually oiled. So to try and buff up the edges is really not that important. That will come with time. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to just really, more than anything, wet along these sew holes, because then the water will absorb inside to the leather. All right, so because this is going to be the underside, we want to have this something along the lines of this. But of course, with this shape, when we sew the peak on, it's going to be sewn on here, so onto the cap itself. Then of course this edge will be sticking outwards and into your head. So what we need to do, as I said, is just basically carefully just bend this edge upwards. Start to give it a bit of a shape there, so that when it's sewn, that it's upwards, so it's on your forehead and not like pointing into your head. So you can give that a nice little shape. As you can see, once you've made it wet, it becomes easier to mold that leather. And it doesn't have to be super perfectly molded or anything like that. It just needs to have a general shape. Again, as you can see as well, it's flattened that out. So what we want to do is just help that peak to start to create the shape that we want. As you can see there, we've got that shape. We've got a slight lip here. We can also work with this a little bit later. Yeah, I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. Okay guys, another tip for you. I use these pins to help to hold the pieces in place, especially if you've got an awkward shaped piece. This helps tremendously to keep at least some form of a shape whilst you're sewing, so that you don't have to keep stopping and realigning everything. Basically what these do is you push it forwards, out comes the pin, and you can then place these in where you will be sewing. So here we can see we have the positions, P1, P2. There's my mark over here, right there. So what I would do is this will be on the outside, and the actual crown piece will be on the inside. It will fold inwards. So I will then just put this here, and then I can I don't know, it's up to you guys, every 10 holes or so, then you can just count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and again on the inside. All right, so there we have it. We know that there is the start, and this hole here coincides with these here, and it just depends on which direction you prefer to sew in, and that's it. So this is now ready or prepared to be sewn, and now I just need to measure out my threading. I'm using like a turquoise light blue threading, so it's up to you. Just measure the initial, and then of course it's normally 4 times. Okay, so there we have it. The initial first band is on now. You can then just shape it a little bit so as to let the holes and the leather work together. All right, okay, so there we got it. Then the next step is to bring in this part, the top band, and again we will start it off here and then sew around. So what I will do is on this side I'm going to pop a pin, and just so you know, you can have a look where you've made your marker here is going to be at the bottom, because that's the part that will connect to the actual peak and the rim. So here you can see your markers. This has to be underneath, yep, not upwards. So just make sure you're getting that correct. Okay, I think I will go ahead with it like this. And then it's just sewing this around. So again, it's the same process as before, so you guys can get to it. The last step that we're going to be doing is not the last step, but the next step is going to be sewing the rim band, the peak, and the cap together. So in fairness, there's 2 steps remaining in the whole thing. And now what we need to do is we need to locate our middle points here. Okay, so, and there. So these are there's the middle point, there's the middle point. So that'll slip over, and we can pop a pin in there just to be able to hold it. And along with that, we've also marked on our rim our middle point. So we know that we have to put it there. All right, so now we have that initial part done. We can then look here and see, there is number 5, which is between those two. We can then pop this through here. And you can do the same thing roughly with the headband or the rim band, to say. So now that's secured in, and of course for the last one we're going to do it on the opposite side. There's number 6. Okay, and roughly the same thing will apply on the rim band. Of course, it doesn't have to be perfect on the rim band. We haven't marked that where those points are, but as we come to the sew, we will see then as we sew along that where that rim band will actually coincide with the with the actual peak and stuff. But that there is roughly how our cap is gonna look. Okay, so we're at the end of the sew. The cap is now basically complete. We need to still do one last sew, which will be the cross stitch, which will be from here on the top all the way down to the bottom, and then that cap is complete. If you still need to do edge work and stuff like that, you can get that done. So cross stitching takes up definitely more thread than normal, so you can do 6 times. How you guys cross stitch is up to you. You can cross stitch it like this so that the cross is on the outside, or you can stitch it like this on the inside there where you only see the crossover. That's up to you. I like to see the cross stitch, so that's what I'll be doing, but it's up to you again. Important though is to start from the top and end at the bottom of the cap, because it will be easier for you to seal that later on, so to seal the threads, and then we're done. So prepare yourselves, and we can get sewing. So here we go. If you start off with the right, if you want to see the cross stitches, it's probably going to be a lot better if you can keep it the same. So I like to go across, then through. So I use this circuit, the right needle. I do a couple of stitches with the right needle. Okay, and then I can pull it tight and basically set the stitch so that it's set. Yeah. Now you just need to be careful because, as you can see, we need to now include that rim piece. So make sure that as you're coming down, that you're also including that rim. Okay, and there you go. There you have your finished cap. You can just check your peak and stuff and just give it a bit more shape, give it a bit of a bend so that you have that nice peak shape for it. And then test out your cap and check that it fits. So I would definitely recommend a couple of things when you print out your pattern, when you've made your pattern and you've tested your cap. If this happens to be a little bit tight for your head, that's not a problem. Let the wool stretch. If need be, you can wet the rim a little bit and then wear the cap, and this will pull the cap out a little bit and give you a little bit more space. Yep. In time it will mold itself a little bit better to your head, and that's that. So just when you're printing that pattern out, just take that into consideration and maybe leave yourself about a 1/2 centimeter or additional 1/2 centimeter space when printing that pattern out. However, it's a very simple, easy, few hour cap to make. It looks good. There we go. That's the black one, and we have the brown with the red, or brown with the tan bill. As you can see, they're looking pretty good. This was a thinner leather, which was quite nice. Gives it a good shape. This one's a bit thicker. It's a little bit more sturdy, but it looks good as well. So there you go. Enjoy making it. Love to see some of your pictures. Send me some comments on what you think is a cool idea to make. Connect with me on social media. Hit like, subscribe, do everything that's necessary. Of course, always great to hear from you guys and always great to see your end product. Cool. Thanks very much.